Hey, what's going on? Luke here, and we're here to do my tips and predictions for the 2023 NRL season. This is round 3, and so far, tips have been a bit hit and miss. Last week started off well. I tipped against my own side, the bloody Bulldogs, and they came out and absolutely annihilated the Storm. So that just shows you how inconsistent my tipping has been, but it's always inconsistent to start the season. Sometimes you get lucky and you start tipping fantastic at the start, but you have no form to work off. You have a couple of weeks to work with. So some of these sides, say like a team like the Dolphins, super hard to predict. They're 2 from 2. They've been playing pretty good, but can they last the whole season? When's the ball going to drop? Will it drop? You know what I mean? Like, that's the sort of stuff you got to deal with. So, but hopefully you guys are tipping a lot better than me, because I am on struggle street. However, that's not going to stop us from doing this video. I should mention, for round 3, the Penrith Panthers have the bye. So I don't know if that's come at a bad time for the Panthers, considering the start of the season. Then they finally won last week, and now they got the bye. They got a bye to sit out. Although I think there's some sort of stat of teams coming off the bye seem to get the win. So Penrith should be ready to go next week. But in terms of this week, we're going to start off with the very first game, which is the Manly Warringah Seagulls in first spot taking on the Parramatta Eels. Now, Manly had the bye last week, so that's something to note. Like I just said, Dragons were the first team to have the bye. They came out and absolutely had a great win for a team that I wasn't expecting to win. And I think in previous seasons when teams have had the bye, they tend to end up winning. So, look, Manly come up against Parramatta. Parramatta 0-2. In my opinion, going to be on 3. I'm not really liking what I'm seeing from Parramatta this year. Obviously, a lot of changes, some key changes, and like the 4-pack is weakened due to injury and all that sort of stuff. But the Manly side looked red hot in the preseason. In round 1, they looked red hot. I know the Bulldogs were diabolical, but Manly looked really, really good. Cherry Evans got a hat-trick, and you can only go with what they've actually done. In the preseason, they're very good. In the Bulldogs game, they're very good. Let's not take into account opposition and all that sort of stuff. They've looked pretty good. Parramatta have had some very, very tough games. Like, they've had tough opponents, so I suppose you can take that into account as well. And they haven't been flogged in any of the games. They've sort of been in amongst it. They just haven't got the job done. But what I do find interesting is Manly go into this game as the favourites. Now, I'm a little bit surprised at that, considering where Parramatta were last year, and they haven't been that far off this year in terms of getting the wins. Obviously, they haven't been winning, which they find themselves in 16th spot, which isn't last, but they do find themselves sort of on struggle streets. And Manly are flying at the moment, but they're flying after one game, you know what I mean? I'm sitting here talking about them flying. They had one game and then they've had the bye. So will remain to be seen how they'll be going this year, but I think Manly are going to win this one. I think they'll be too strong with Schuster coming back into the side. That's probably the actual key talking point, is Schuster comes back in. And I thought Cooper Johns has done a fantastic job. So if Schuster doesn't play well, there's competition. There's definitely competition. So Schuster has to play well, or he's going to get shit canned to reserve grade. The bench, second row, is going to get moved somewhere. I wouldn't even be surprised. Like, Schuster, to me, would be like a good lock. But anyways, they're not going with that. They've gone with him at 5'8". But I am going to be going Manly 1-12. I think this will be a tight one. On to the second game. It's the Newcastle Knights taking on the Dolphins. Straight up, I'm going to say the Dolphins win this one. It's their first away game, so that is something to note. Obviously, they've played in front of home crowds. Pretty easy to get up in front of a home crowd. Knights should know all about that. They're playing at home this week. They get a great fan base. They get a great turnout every week when they play at home. So they should be right up for it. But I just want to take a look at the Knights lineup real quick, because there's a lot of out. Safidi's out, Jacob Brayley's out, Callum Pong is out, and Tyson Frizell is out. So that is a lot of changes. Phoenix Crosland is in the hook position. Jack Hetherington starting prop. He's going to swing and arm someone for sure. For sure. The back row, Brodie Jones, Fitzgibbon, Leo Thompson. I like Leo Thompson, but yeah, like, just compared to the 4-pack, like, if you compare the sides, player to player, the Dolphins side nearly beats them in every single position. I like Tyson Gamble at 5'8" with Hastings. I think that's a nice little combo. You got Lockie Miller still at fullback, but Crosland at hooker, that is just, poor Knights fan. 13 plus Dolphins. Moving on to the next game. It is the Roosters up against the Rabbitohs, traditional rivalry game. This should be a very, very good game. Roosters have been struggling. Rabbitohs haven't been struggling, but they didn't look at their best last week. They did lose. It was a tight one. Could have possibly tied things up at times, but definitely not one of their better games. I think Latrell Mitchell will be right up for this game, up against his old club. I'm expecting the Rabbitohs to come out firing. Obviously, I'm expecting the Roosters to come out firing. Let's take a quick look at the lineups. Lots of ins for the Roosters. Rio Hargreaves, Radley's there. Joey Marnie's got another week back. It's not like a full-strength side, but it kind of is a full-strength side for the Roosters. They've got the Butcher brothers in the back row. So you still have a little bit of firepower to come back in Tupanua and Angus Crichton. But just in terms of what they got to work with at the moment, this is probably as strong as it's going to get for a little while. But I don't know. Something is telling me to tip the Rabbitohs just because the Roosters just look so off in the first couple of weeks. But because they look so off, it's like, oh, surely they're gonna come good. Is it going to be this week? I'm hoping not, because I'm tipping the Rabbitohs. I'm going to tip on 1-12. I think it'll be a tight one. I think it always is a tight one with these two sides, but I can't go against the Rabbitohs at this point. They've been playing pretty well. Even though they haven't been winning every game, they've been playing pretty well. Now into Gold Coast Titans taking on the Melbourne Storm. Now my instinct is to sit here and say Melbourne Storm 13+. It's Melbourne Storm. Titans are the Titans. Melbourne are going to smash in. But this is not the Melbourne Storm of old. This is definitely not. We saw that last week. Now, we'll mention that Storm have a few players coming in, but the big loss is big Nelson Asafa-Solomona. He was absolutely devastating last week. When he got the ball, as a Bulldog supporter, I was like, oh my God. I had him on my fantasy team. He scored a try. He was absolutely killing it last week, and it just added that firepower that the rest of the Storm 4-pack doesn't have when he's not there. In previous years, they've had the Bromwich boys, they've had Kafusi. Look how good that they're going at the Dolphins, but they're not there anymore. So Nelson was really carrying that 4-pack with Christian Welch, and now Nelson's gone. Looking at the ins, though, they have the young Jonah Pezzett. I think he's a 5'8" halfback. He's like some gun youngster. Wouldn't be surprised if he ends up in the starting role in at 5'8" with Wishart moving to the bench or something. You got Justin Olam coming back in, Tarek Sims, Tui Kamika, and Xavier Coates. So that's a lot of ins. That's probably enough ins for me to say that I think they can win this one. Will they definitely win this one? I don't know. Adding to the fact that the Titans are going to be missing Sammy Verrills, Feeder goes out of the side as well. They do gain Brian Kelly, which I think is a big in for them, but Sam Verrills being out is a huge one. Who's playing at number 9? Chris Randall comes in. Look, personally, I'm going to go with the Storm. As much as I want to say Titans, and Titans were absolutely terrible last week against the Dragons, but they are playing at home. BKLB there, leading the army with the drums there. But the Storm are the Storm, and I feel like they've got enough troops back this week that they can get the job done. I think it'll be a tight one. I think it'll be 1-12. I think Titans will push them, but I'm just going to go with the Storm. Probably just due to it just being the Storm, not really on paper or form or anything like that. I'm just going with the Storm because Craig Bellamy. And now into the last game of Super Saturday. I think it's actually going to be a very, very good game, but we have the North Queensland Cowboys at home up against the New Zealand Warriors. Now, the Warriors are playing fantastic at the moment. Like, looking at some of the key people in their side, actually, the fullback, Chance is out. They've got a guy I don't even know, Tua Piki. Honestly, haven't heard of him. I'm surprised there's no Metcalf or someone like that coming into the side. Very, very surprised there. Wouldn't be surprised if Tamari Martin ends up at fullback and Volkman comes into the halves. That could be a possibility. But Montoya's been really good for them. Tamari Martin and Johnson hitting it off. Wade Egan been fantastic. They have a 4-pack that includes Fanua Blake, Barnett, Niokora, Tohu Harris, Dylan Walker off the bench, Josh Curran. Like, Curran was someone they were talking about for New South Wales last year, and he's coming off the bench. Jackson Ford out as well. So, for all the Supercoach guys, yikes. But just in terms of the side that the Warriors are putting out, it is a very good one. The Cowboys have named Tom Chester at fullback. I have no idea who Tom Chester is. Obviously, Drinky's out. Peter Hiku is out as well. You'd think Val Holmes goes to the fullback. Surely Valentine Holmes plays fullback. Normally they chuck in the hammer, but he's at the Dolphins. You can't tell me Tom Chester's going to play fullback and the Cowboys are going to be at full strength. You got to chuck Val Holmes there, even if it's for a couple of weeks. I don't care what you do, he's got to play there. I just don't think you can risk having a rookie come into this side when you have options like Val Holmes. It's not like he's never played there before. He's played there plenty of times and he's half decent. So I think you chuck him in there. But as for a winner for this game, I think it's going to be a tight one. Again, I keep saying they're all going to be tight games, but that just seems to be how they're going. I think it's a good round of footy, but the Cowboys at home, I can't really go past them. I'm going to go with the Cowboys 1-12. I think the Warriors push them again. The 4-pack battle will be quite good. The backs as well, just like a couple rookies in their fullback. Remains to be seen whether they'll actually play, but I think it's going to be a fantastic game. Probably one of the games of the round. Obviously up there with the Rabbitohs and Roosters and such, but I'm going Cowboys 1-12. Did I say the last game was Super Saturday for the last one? It's definitely not the last game. This is the last game. It's the Brisbane Broncos taking on the St. George Illawarra Dragons. Broncos are absolutely flying. The Dragons are sort of flying a little bit. Like they got a win last week against the Titans, but the Titans are pretty dreadful, let's be honest. I have no confidence in the Titans. Even if they come out and smash a team one week, you can probably bet that they're going to lose the next week. That's just the sort of side they are. Won in week 1, lost in week 2, pretty sure. It just fits the Titans perfectly. So the Dragons getting a win, it doesn't fill me with a lot of confidence, especially going into the game against the Broncos, who are just killing at the moment. They're beating big dogs. They're beating teams like the Penrith Panthers. Reece Walsh is there. He's the missing piece of the puzzle, in my opinion. There's been a lot of talk over the previous years about their spine and, what's going on with the Broncos. Why can't they sort of take it to the next level? And I think it was purely down to the fact that they didn't have a fullback and they still don't have a hooker. Billy Walters isn't it for me. In terms of video game terms, I would say like Billy Walters is like a mid-70 player, and then if they had a guy who was like mid-80s or in the 80s in general, I think they would be so much better. But instead, they've got the coach's son, which makes sense. It's, Kevin Walters' son, so he's going to get picked. In terms of the fullback position, though, Reece Walsh has come in and he's shown just how good he is, firstly, but also how much the Broncos have missed having a superstar fullback. And I'd say Reece Walsh at this point in his career is sort of moving on to that superstar phase of his career. He's super young, but there's a reason he's been around Queensland camps for years and he's so young and he barely played first grade. And I know the Broncos let him go, but they've brought him back on a much bigger contract and all it took was like one season with the Warriors. Basically, he just gives him that element. Like they've had strong backlines in the past. They've definitely had strong wingers and all that sort of stuff, but they just haven't had anyone to get the service out there. Like they've had Adam Reynolds was there last year. They've had a lot of the players who were there this year were there last year, but Reece Walsh comes in and he's just that last guy that like when a Tessie New's getting the ball or a Tamari Martin or a Jermaine Asako is getting the ball, you just don't have that same threat. Reece Walsh, you're like, oh man, he can beat them himself. He can pass the ball, he can kick it, he can do everything. Essentially, he's Reece Lightning for a reason. Look, Broncos 13 plus. I don't really need to talk about this one any further. It seems like an obvious one to me. Now moving on to Sunday afternoon football, it's my team, the Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs, up against the West Tigers. Straight up 13 plus Bulldogs. Tigers just absolutely terrible. Looking at their lineup, let me just see. Luke Brooks, Adam Dewey have been named. There's a few rumours going around for them. The back line is just gross. Charlie Staines comes in. So Dane Laurie's out, Papa Lee is out, Jake Simpkins out, and Tommy Talau is out. But they do gain Johnny Bateman, and he's been named on the extended bench. Yeah, he's been named on the extended bench. You'd assume he's probably going to play if he's been named. But Brandon Wakem's on the bench. I think that says a lot about the Tigers at this point. These guys, like this, man, all the talk about the Tigers, including from myself, was that like Tigers are going to be new and improved. They got Coruscant there. Poor Coruscant is just going around. He's going, I have no one to pass it to. Normally I'd have Kickout running there. I'd have Liam Martin running there. Nathan Cleary's, I can pass the ball to him. Jerome Maguire, Dylan Edwards, all these gun players, Isaiah Yeo. And now he's passing it to like Luke Brooks and Sean Blaw. Now, like, don't get me wrong, they're okay players, but just in terms of the standard that he was at and the standard that he's at now, it's just, I feel so bad for Coruscant. But at the same time, I think the Bulldogs are looking pretty good. How they played last week was how I expected them to play in round one. They just couldn't hold the ball and they couldn't kick a ball. Every single ball that they kicked against Manly went out in the full. Kick-out was kicking it. I know he's got the name Kick in his name, but he shouldn't be kicking. Essentially, the Bulldogs finally played up to scratch. They played half decent. It wasn't a 10 out of 10 game by any means, but it was probably about a 7 out of 10, and we still put the sword in to the Storm in Melbourne. So I think they'll take a lot of confidence out of that. Reid Marnie played very, very well. A few errors from him, but like another week of Hayes at fullback. Avarilo's been killing it. Jacob Carraz is fantastic. He could be the best winger in the comp in a few years, in my opinion. Alamonte another week. Just a lot of guys who, for a team that's taken some time to gel, it's another week under their belt, so they should be a lot better. Same can be said for the Tigers, but for them, they just, I don't even know if gelling's the problem. They just aren't good. So, look at the team on paper. Like, I've sat here all off-season and said Tigers have made the right signings, yada, yada, yada. Now I'm looking at the side and I'm going, oh my God, it looks awful. It looks terrible. You chuck in Coruscant and like David Clemmer, and that's it. Like, Papa Lee's not playing, so obviously it makes it look a lot weaker, but they've got a long way to go, the Tigers. So, Bulldogs 13 plus. Like, no question marks for me in that one. Now, moving on to the last game of the round. It's the Canberra Raiders taking on the Cronulla Sutherland Sharks. This one should be a tight one just purely because it's in Canberra. I think in terms of on paper, I think it's a bit of a mismatch. I think Braden Trindle, Tricky Trindle, has been looking pretty good in the halves. Obviously, Nico Hines back next week. Going to be interesting to see who ends up taking the 5'8" role. But the Sharks, in my opinion, should win this one pretty convincingly, but I don't know if that will be the case just because it's in Canberra. We'll see how it goes weather-wise, but games in Canberra are always different. It's kind of similar to like when teams go to Townsville, they go to Melbourne, just like those grounds where it is hard to get a win. I'm not saying they won't win. Obviously, I think they will win, but it takes a lot out of them. Raiders really get up for these games, and if the conditions suit, Raiders could push them a little bit, but I haven't seen enough from the Raiders. Looking at their side, it's not a terrible side, but it's also not like a really good side. And I just don't like Danny Levi in at the number 9. I can't go with the Raiders. I have to go the Sharkies. I'm going the Sharkies. I think they'll end up winning 1-12. Like I said, I've done a lot of 1-12s this week, but I think that's just purely what it's going to be. I can't help that these are some tight games. But yeah, guys, I'm going to wrap things up here. Hopefully you did enjoy this one. If you did, make sure you go ahead and smash the like button and subscribe to the channel if you're new around here. Definitely leave a like on it and leave comments too, because it really helps in terms of growing the channel, in terms of people seeing the videos. Every like, every comment helps. Every subscription helps while I'm at it. Also become a member of the channel as well. It really, really helps. It really helps sort of support the channel and support me and enables me to make more videos and all that sort of stuff. Also go ahead and chuck me a follow on social media. It's on the screen right now. Updated graphics, as you can see. We have the TikTok and Snapchat on there, but everything is Mr. Luke and YT. Give me a follow, give me an ad. And yeah, guys, I'm going to wrap things up here. Let me know in the comment section below what are your tips for this week, because I definitely need some help, and I've probably said some absolutely stupid things. So go ahead, give me your tips and predictions, and stay tuned for more content on the channel. I've got plenty of rugby league stuff to talk about, whether it's Rugby League Live, whether it's Rugby League Legends, the new game, or whether it's like my tips and predictions for round 4. I'll see you in the next one, guys. Bye.